Human Capital Solutions, LLC, is a full-service HR consulting firm established in 2017. I talk one-on-one with Sonja Southerland, the founder and chief people officer of this company, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Sonja Southerland, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm bringing you on Quintin's Close-Ups, Ms. Sonja, because obviously you are the chief people officer of Innovate Human Capital Solutions, LLC, which is a full-service HR consulting firm established in 2017. Let me ask you this, Ms. Sonja. What's new? What's now with your LLC?
So what's new is we are continuing to build on the foundation of this full-service HR consulting firm where we are supporting small businesses and establishing the HR function and really helping business leaders understand the value of HR and find ways to infuse it in their culture so that they can attract, retain, and develop the best talent, especially in the way that the landscape of work has changed post-COVID. So we're doing that. And this year, particularly what's new is we're hosting our second annual conference called ICON that's going to be held in Summerville, South Carolina on September 19th and 20th at the Low Country Conference Center. So we're really excited about all that's going to unfold. The first event in 2023 was amazing, and we've got some really great things planned for 2024.
So, Ms. Sonja, as we sit here right now, what is the value of HR solutions?
So, Innovate is, I think, a little different than what you will find in your regular or standard HR consulting firm. We believe the value in HR is really around the synergy that's created between the business owner and the professional. So, in an organization, it's one thing to say, I applied for this job, I'm going to work at this location, and I expect for this company to pay me for the services that I provide. But it's another thing when that organization also comes to the table stating that we want the best talent that we can possibly find for this role. And we're creating an environment that invites people that want to invest their talent, because we're coming also recognizing that people want inclusivity. They want to feel that like they belong. They want to feel like their voices are heard. They want to feel like their contributions matter. And so the organizations can't just take the approach now, well, I hire you and I pay you, and that's all. We really have to invite the culture where people feel like they belong in a particular environment, and where the organizations take that responsibility. Professionals also have a responsibility to, engage in a working environment where they can, feel free to lend their thoughts, lend their skills, knowing that there's going to be value on the other side of that. Typically, when you hear about HR, people are just about, how do you help me hire? How do you help me fire? When I'm in trouble, these are the people that I go to. But we're really designed to help create that synergy that needs to exist so that people can extend the life cycle of the employees that come to work into their organizations.
So, Ms. Sonja, what has that life cycle been for those employers over the past couple of years?
Well, we found that post-COVID, a lot of people have exited the workforce. And so the workforce has significantly decreased. And we see research now that with I should back up and say this is the first time in history that all 5 generations are present in the workforce at the same time. All the way from your traditional employees now all the way down to Generation Alpha. We have them at the very youngest, 16, 17, wow, that are, founders and business owners, even at that very young age. And so organizations now are having to learn how to adjust and create value for each one of those segments of generations, because everyone is expecting something different. And when you look at each of those generations, some of them have decided that they're going to exit the workforce in the traditional way that we know it, and have decided to go into this gig economy where they can go and work someplace for 6 months, earn, a consulting fee, and move on. But for those that are still interested in engaging in this single source insurance industry, where you can participate in a group health insurance plan from a corporate environment, we are finding that the workforce has significantly reduced because there's so many options, which is why it's important to have a partner in HR that can make your organization appealing to those who are still in the market to work in the traditional sense.
A couple of things, Ms. Sonja. What is that market like now that you have these, obviously these gig economy folks getting, things taken care of under that particular realm versus the traditional employees?
So I think what it means is that people have more options. That is what's happening in the workforce because people have options now. They're not just sitting around waiting at the phone for you to call and say, we'd like to offer you this position. Mm-hmm. So organizations now have to come to the marketplace with more value. They have to come to the marketplace with more flexibility. They have to come to the marketplace with higher wages so that people recognize that if I am going to invest 8 or more hours with you a day, then it has to be worth it. And we have to create environments that make it easier for people to do that. And so those who have decided to go in the gig economy say that the traditional work environment is just too rigid. They don't want the rigidity of having to report at a certain time every day. They don't want to have to get up and get dressed, drive in their car and go into a location. Remote work has become a lot more popular, and organizations that are recognizing this and evolving into that are actually winning a lot stronger, and they're recruiting and retaining people at a much higher rate when there is greater flexibility.
So, Ms. Sonja, how much has that rate changed as far as keep retaining talent been since COVID?
Well, we know the employment rate has significantly decreased. There was a lot of additional support being offered through unemployment and some other stimuluses that help people, fund their business, their entrepreneurial efforts. So some of those individuals were able to make that transition a little bit easier because of the additional support that was provided. But when you look at what is available versus the people that are, or the individuals that are available to come into the workforce, there's still space, there is still room, but it's only that space is narrowing for those who are open to creating the type of environments that continues to increase in a lot of organizations where there's rigidity, where they feel, there's no place for their voice to be heard, that things are not changing, there's no structure, there's no standard way of working, no standard operating procedures, the culture sucks, managers are not trained appropriately. In those environments, we see higher turnover. But the challenge is that those organizations have to address root issues. It's not just about the people. It's about creating systems and processes that help people feel secure when they come to work in your organization.
So what systems and processes are ideal for these companies right now, Ms. Sonja?
I think that particularly depending on the industry, but you definitely need a really strong employee handbook that identifies your policies and your procedures, your practices. Yes. You need a good HRIS or HR information system that allows you to have data supported for the demographics of your team, to help you really pay people appropriately according to the rules so that you're not having any compliance risk. I think it's really important to have a good feedback loop, a system that gives you the opportunity to have feedback, whether that's through an employment engagement survey or whether it's through touch points or one-on-ones, but some type of system that allows you to communicate consistently with your team members and get that information back from them about what is working and what is not working. I also think that systems that really create the opportunity for career ladders or for people to grow and develop. Sure. So they come in at one place and at one part in their career, but the organization is poised to allow them to increase their earning potential and to continue to develop in their skills and develop in their way of working and just kind of escalating and amplifying to that next level.
So let me ask you this. Since your company has been launched, Ms. Sonja, how many of your clients have actually increased their earning potential?
I would say all of them have increased their earning potential. I'd say that just whenever you are hiring individuals or you increase your intellectual capital by identifying the right people who are in the right seats at the right time, the only thing that you can do is exponentially increase your earning potential. Because at the end of the day, the people, if you have a people first culture where the people are most important, where you're prioritizing your customers, prioritizing those services, but the people above all else, then the only way that you can grow is exponentially increasing your net operating capital, your earning potential, or the revenue of the business. Everything is increased when you prioritize people.
A- And I want to get back to that in just a second, Ms. Sonia, but let me ask you, you mentioned this just a second ago, but what's really working and what's really not working for most of these companies in your mind, from your perspective?
I think, in my experience, I think that people still view HR as a luxury and they don't see it as a priority. They don't see it as something that, they really need to invest in. They say, well, I can hire my own people. I can go out, I can put out an ad and I can get people to respond and bring them into my organization. And the truth is, yes, you can, but there is a certain skill that HR professional possesses that not only helps you attract that talent, but helps you retain that talent and develop that talent and help you find the nuances in your organization that may be leading people away from your business. And I think that when you can implement that structure and value that structure as a priority and not as a luxury, then it really does change the dynamic of your business and how people engage with you in your business.
Do your particular company, Ms. Sonia, what are those nuances that you've really, for lack of a better word, exposed?
Lots of nuances. So, for the most part, I think what I have experienced with my clients is people just don't feel heard. They don't feel like if they say that I have a problem, if they say that, this manager is, managing this person this way, but when it comes down to me, there's a different set of rules. It's very hard to quantify that if you don't have standard operating procedures that say this is the expectation and this is the way that everyone is supposed to do it. Or a manager is at the point where they're just fed up with somebody that's calling in frequently or always late to work or not, meeting productivity, but there are no systems or processes in place that outline what the standard should be. And so when that happens, people feel isolated. They feel like they've been, that like they're being called out, like they are, the issue or they're the problem, when it really is just a lack of structure. And so those nuances exist in all types of organizations, whether you have 5 employees or whether you have 500. There's an opportunity for you to really standardize and create the type of environment where everyone it's not necessarily equal, but we have equity so that we're creating the same opportunities across the organization.
So, Ms. Sonia, how do you standardize those systems and processes to make certain that those requirements are actually met?
Well, it takes work. I mean, you have to get into those organizations and really understand the functionality of the business, understand, what the products are, what the services are, who their customers are, and really understand the roles and the functions of those roles. It starts with really having a really strong job description for each of those roles, and then being really able to identify what the training path is. So when you bring someone into an organization, how do you train them? How do they, how are they able to learn what they need to learn about the essential functions of that role and have them acclimated to the role as quickly as possible, lessen that learning curve so that they feel confident and secure that when you place them out after their training, that they're able to deliver on what you've hired them to do.
So, what are those learning curves that have been associated with this in the past couple of years?
Learning curves exist in all types of environments. In the work environment, in the educational environment, everything that we do is a learning curve. I mean, anything that you're learning for the first time or having to relearn, it's a learning curve. If you've never done it before, it takes time to understand it, to acclimate to it. It takes time to really, feel like you have your feet under you and you're able to, move from one place to the next. And
Right.
that's in everything that we do, whether it's riding the bike for the first time, whether it's answering the phone for the first time, or whether it's, doing introductions with a new client for the first time. It's a learning curve. And I think that organizations have to recognize that they exist and that we have the appropriate expectations of people when they enter our organizations, to know that they don't know it, but that we have a responsibility to provide the information so that they can know it and so that they can feel comfortable as they're matriculating through in their roles, and they can continue to learn and grow and develop. And that also helps people stay, we talked a little bit earlier about the life cycle
Sure.
of an employee. That increases the life cycle when people feel comfortable and they have, gotten through that phase where you've actually invested time and resources to help them learn. They're, more apt to stay seated, to stay in that role for a longer period of time than to jump ship if they feel insecure or they feel like, they're never going to be able to succeed in a particular role.
So, Ms. Sonja, let me reset. How do you actually introduce yourself to your clients?
Well, I just, I try to introduce myself by being a great listener, because I feel like, as a consultant, the traditional path is to go in and offer some services or offer some products that you feel can help. But I feel that I have been most successful with my clients because I listen first to really hear their pain points, to really figure out what it is they're really struggling with, and how is that impacting their ability to deliver their product or service? How is it impacting their ability to impact the people that are coming into their business, whether they're employees or vendors or partners or whoever they are? And when I learn that information, then I'm able to provide them insight into ways that I can support them, or maybe not me, but other resources that may be available to support them. And generally, when you build that relationship first, if you go in, based on getting to know and understand what the nuances are within a business and with an individual, and just building that relationship, then the business will just come. And that has been my success story.
And Ms. Sonja, when you're sitting down talking with these people one-on-one, like we're doing right now, what are you seeing most of these businesses struggling with today?
I think most people are struggling with finding people, finding talent, finding the people that can support their business in delivering, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's property management, whether it's attorneys' offices, whether it's a bank. It doesn't even matter. People are just struggling with finding good quality talent right now. And so that's a really, really big pain point. And also keeping up with the economy. The economy has changed. Inflation was an all-time high in the last year and a half. And so finding ways to compensate people that may be beyond the standard base pay, finding benefits programs and packages and bonus and commission structures that can kind of help support finding that best talent is really a challenge and a struggle, and finding ways to support their business financially so that they can afford to pay to have the top talent and be able to support recruiting that cream of the crop into their organization.
Post-COVID, Ms. Sonja, how do you actually retain and attract, talent?
I think it's with honesty. And like I said earlier, it is around culture. It is around creating an environment where people feel like they belong, so that they're valued, they're heard, they're seen, they're supported, and that there are systems in place that provide that for them. So it's not just words. It's not just saying this is a great culture, but when you talk to other employees, when you talk to previous employees, when you talk to customers, when you talk to individuals that interact in those organizations, and there's a consistent story around how people are prioritized, those are the businesses that are winning in this season. People that value their culture and really creating an environment where people feel like they're really valued and like they really matter.
And when you're talking to those people, your potential clients, what exactly is that culture that you take away from listening from these people?
I think it is the culture of people first. It is the culture of ensuring that people have a place that no matter what they look like, no matter what socioeconomic status they're in, no matter what their sexual preferences are, no matter what their genders are, no matter about any of those things, that they come into an environment and they know that the skills that they're bringing and the value that they're bringing to that organization is recognized, and it is celebrated, and that people feel like, their voice really matters. Those are the type of cultures, and those are the type of cultures that are engaging for people. I think when you think about the word culture, it's sort of elusive. People think, well, what exactly is culture?
Sure.
The culture is what people do. It is what they do every single day that help people feel like they belong. It is the policies that we set. It is the practices that we follow up on. It's the metrics that we measure. It is all of these things that tell people that I matter and that what I do for this business matters. That is those decisions that are made daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually, and cumulatively make up the culture of an organization.
So, what metrics are businesses using right now to actually have that people first culture?
I think measuring retention is a good metric. Measuring voluntary turnover is a good metric. Measuring your training cost and what it's costing you to get people up to speed in a particular role is a good metric. Another good metric is just figuring out the cost of turnover. So how much is it costing you when a person leaves your organization? How much does it cost you to replace that person? I think a lot of businesses underestimate the value of what that turnover costs, because it's sometimes, if you're talking about an entry-level role, like a call center customer service person, it may be 25 to 30% of the annual base salary. But when you start getting into management and senior level leadership roles, it could be upwards of 60 or 70% of that base salary to turn that position over, which over time is not something that's sustainable for a business. So if you can really monitor that and manage your turnover costs, then it will really help to support your bottom line.
And how much have those costs gone up because of COVID?
I think the cost of turnover probably has increased just because, as I mentioned just a little bit ago,
yes,
just in general, the economy has increased. So salaries have increased. So the higher the salary is, the higher is going to be the cost of the turnover. If you have a position that the average salary is $40,000 and it's 20% turnover cost, you're looking at 10% of 40,000 is 4,000. So that's $8,000 just to turn over that position. But what does that $8,000 include? It includes the time of the recruiter. It includes the time of the person that is training that person. It includes the time of the person who's posting that position, the time of the people who are interviewing for that position, all of the intellectual property that is lost as a result of that person leaving the organization. So it's so many ways to measure turnover costs, but it's not getting any cheaper. I can tell you that for sure. It's not getting any cheaper.
And Ms. Sonja, this is a silly question, but how much intellectual property has been lost because of COVID with most of these companies?
I mean, intellectual property is just about the knowledge that exists within the organization from a person's experience. So when people walk away from a business, then that intellectual property is walking away. If you don't have a way to retain that information or to get that information out of a person's head onto a piece of paper or into a policy or into a procedure, then that intellectual property is leaving the business and it's very difficult to get it back. So I think that goes back to the idea of having the appropriate systems in place so that as people are learning to do things, they're being documented appropriately so that someone can come behind them and duplicate that effort and not have to start over from scratch.
Wow. In 2024, what exactly should businesses do right now to get where they need to be?
I think in 2024, what's important for businesses is to prioritize people, prioritize systems, and prioritize your way of engaging with your team to listen, to really understand what people need, to really not just throw something out there because you think it's what people want, but really understand what their needs are and respond to those things. I think if you have a good feedback loop in 2024, it's going to be important to be able to respond to those things, even if you cannot say yes to what an employee is asking just because they feel heard and they know that you've given them a valid reason or what your plan is for moving forward. Even if the answer is no to what their request is, then that goes a long way in just building up that relationship and letting people know that what they're thinking about and what's on their minds is important to you as a business owner.
And this might be another redundant question, Ms. Sonia, but why in your mind has HR become an employer's consultant?
I think it's become an employer's consultant because that's the traditional way that people have used HR. So, as I mentioned before, when people hear of HR, they think, oh boy, I'm in trouble. Something's wrong. If HR is calling me, something is wrong. But my whole idea and even the premise of my conference is about creating workplace harmony, right? It's not about balance because in balance, you always have to give something up to get something, right? The pendulum always swings from
Right.
one piece to the next. But in harmony, then our lives can coexist through we can integrate the different functions of our life at the same time. So we can be we can be a manager, we can be a wife, we can be a daughter, we can be an aunt. All of those things can coexist in harmony at the same time. And I think that is the beauty of where we are now, that we've learned that we don't have to work the same way that we've worked for the last 50 years, that we're kind of on a new paradigm and we're in a new space now where we've learned that there are different ways that we can coexist in the work environment that does not mirror what we have seen before. So as we are moving forward, I think it's important to recognize that any place that you can have work-life integration and that work-life harmony, you're always going to have a much higher level of engagement.
And I want to go back to that people first culture that you talked about earlier. What else exists or should exist when it comes to that type of culture?
I think when I speak of a people first culture, what I am speaking of is valuing the person over the position, right? So you come into some organizations, they think, we don't want to know anything about what's going on in your personal life. We just want you here to do this job, right? And that just doesn't work anymore because
Mm,
people come to work with real life issues. People
yes, it
come to work with all of the things of who they are and what they have experienced. Their lived experiences come to work with them. And so that people first culture is valuing the person first before you valuing the thing that they're doing or the skill that they're bringing to the office. So that might look like if a person is coming to work today and they're having a bad day, it's giving them some space to say, hey, I recognize this is not the best day for you. Let me know when is a better time for me to come and have this conversation with you. Or a person, you may work in an environment where you have primarily childbearing parents, people that are in that space that they are bearing children. Having policies that support paid leave for parents is a
right.
people first culture, making sure that people feel like, okay, this company values the things that are important to me at this point and stage in my life. And they're making it easy for me so that I don't have to choose between my family or my work, that they can coexist at the same time. That really is what a people first culture looks like.
And I know, Ms. Sonia, obviously you established your company, Innovative Human Capital Solutions, LLC, which is obviously a full service HR consulting firm in 2017. What is the biggest difference about HR consulting from when you started to right now?
I think for me, the biggest difference for Innovate has been just the idea of this workplace harmony. When I first started out, it was just really about, you know, defining what HR was for business
Mm,
and helping individuals sort of reach the pinnacle of their success. But it has transitioned over time to the idea of culture and the integration of how we work, live, and play, right? It's not just about going to work every day, working 8 hours, coming home, and that those two things kind of being separate entities, but finding ways for them to coexist together so that there's more integration and more harmony in a life. And I think that's the value that HR can bring to any organization, is to help organizations and professionals find that synergy and find that harmony that exists with how we live, work, and play.
Sonja Southerland, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's Close Ups.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.